Yeah, it's interesting. When I got in the real estate business 40 years ago, um, I got in the real estate business because it was a business that I could make a difference in people's lives. Unlike a lot of those things where you're selling this or selling this, this is you're selling somebody a home or helping somebody sell their home, whatever. But the other thing is I was going to do it my way. I was going to do it as a man of faith, and that was going to be what people knew about me. And if that didn't work, then I was going to be okay with that. That obviously it wasn't what I was supposed to do. And so the way I went about becoming a real estate agent and then ultimately fairly quickly becoming in management and coaching others was exactly that the beauty of this business is you can be who you want to be. And if it doesn't work out, well, then it wasn't meant to be. But you don't have to just be pigeonholed into a particular type of scenario. I always say that, in my company, I always talk about the fact that this is not a company where my way is the highway, right? This is a company where I'm here to serve you. And we've just brought on a new person in our company to handle some of the day-to-day stuff so I can have some more freedom to do some other things. And I left her a note the other day before her first day, and I said, the three things that I said to the folks of the company I'm with now 18 years ago, which is still hard to believe, is one, that I was going to manage them with a servant heart. That from a biblical perspective, I didn't have to talk about my faith in that situation, but I just wanted them to know I'm here to serve. And then I want us to be the best company we can be. We may not ever be the best company, but we're going to be the best that we can be. And similar to what you're doing, Tamara, and what I'm doing and other things, I just want to serve the Lord and let the Lord kind of take it where He wants it to go. And it may not ever be that I'm the this or that, but I just want to be somebody that's known as somebody who's honored the Lord in what they've done. And then the third thing was, the reputation in the community, both professionally and giving back to the community. And those three things I was able to share with them so that they kind of knew where I was coming from. And then, in training and things like that, I would use biblical passages and say, this is a lesson that I learned in the Bible. That may not be for you, but for me and what I'm talking to you about right now. And so there's no doubt amongst our almost 100 agents, there's no doubt who I am and who I serve, right? And thankfully, I think my life has been a testimony to that. And so I think a lot of people are willing to hear it and listen to me because they see it in my life. They see it in the way I care for Dottie. They see it in the way I care for my kids. They see it in whatever, for the most part. I mean, not that I haven't made mistakes and done things the wrong way and things, but then that's the other thing, is being able to go to those people and say, hey, I'm sorry, I blew it.
Yeah.
And honestly being able to, how many people do we know in business that are afraid to say they're sorry or afraid to say they made a mistake? And man, the freedom that we have to be able to say God's in charge of this outcome, not us. And what He tells us to do is go ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, completely. And I think that there's like this knowing that part of that forgiveness is forgiving ourselves, where we hear this, right? Like forgiveness starts with us, because it might not be that person who has offended you or that you think you deserve an apology from ever comes, but that we have to be okay that we're forgiving them and we're forgiving ourselves because we've been forgiven. And so a part of that, as you were on essentially what I'm sure you probably perceived was your deathbed at certain parts of the scenario of paralysis, were you angry with God? How did you kind of wrestle with Him in that season? And how has that now, obviously, other than like the depth of your faith and that connection that you mentioned, how do you help others who are walking through heartaches and heartbreaks or physical ailments?
So the first thing I have to say is people are going to say that I'm nuts when I say this, and that it can't be the case. And I'm not saying it to pat myself on the back. I truly am saying that God was with me. I not one time said, why me? I not one time, was bitter, certainly was miserable, was physically miserable. I couldn't move anything. I'm a little bit claustrophobic anyway.
Yeah.
And so to be in a bed where people had to prop me up so I could sleep, and then when I woke up, I felt like the pillows were like boulders because I couldn't move. And
Yeah.
so this feeling of trapped. But I honestly can say not one time that I ever say why me, not one time that I was angry. For whatever reason, God gave me this message of you're going to be better. Just do what's next. And a friend of mine who's an orthopedic surgeon, he doesn't know anything about Guillain Barre. He came into the hospital room pretty quickly after I was admitted, because we were supposed to be together at a UVA basketball game, and he came in with his son and his girlfriend, who's now they're now married and have their first little child, which is wonderful.
Yay.
I mentored him through high school and college and everything. And when they left the room, David came back in and said, "Michael, I'm not a neurologist. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, but I did reach out to some friends, and I want to tell you 3 things." I said, "Okay." He said, "The first one is it's going to get worse before it gets better." I said, "Well, that's really encouraging. Thank you so much, David, for sharing that with me." And quite honestly, one of the miracles of this was that it never got into my diaphragm, so I never had to go on a ventilator and respirator, which some people do, which would have been miserable.
Yeah.
But first, he said, it's going to get worse before it gets better. The second thing you need to know is that God loves you, and he is with you, and he's going to be with you. And I said, "Okay, I like that one." And then he said, the third one was, you are going to get better. And so I just took that. I just took that as sort of right from God, that I was going to get better. So I never for a minute doubted that I was going to get better. Now, my wife and the people around us, some friends who came to visit me early on said, "I don't think he's going to make it." My wife wasn't sure I was going to make it. But in the midst of all that, I just knew that God was with me, and that if he said I'm going to get better, then I'm going to get better. And so that was just my attitude. And one of the things Dottie and I did is we put no time limit on it. We never asked how long. Once I left the hospital, we never left how long am I going to be in rehab. And we found out later, I literally almost walked out. I did walk out of rehab on my own. I had a cane that I kind of used, but I was twirling it like Charlie Chaplin, right? Just to show the folks there that I'm out of here. And we didn't find out until later that I wasn't supposed to walk out of that rehab center for 3 more months, and probably with the walker.
Wow.
And so the quickness of the way it came back, I believe the power of prayer, but I also believe this attitude of I'm just going to do what's next.
That's good.
If they tell me I go to physical therapy, I'm going to go to physical therapy. They tell me to go take a nap, I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what they tell me, and I'm just going to focus on what's next and not get way out in front, because if they had told me I was going to be there till August, that would have just brought such discouragement to me.
That's really good.
But the last thing I would say, Tamra, in regards to this is that that's what I was talking about. Just there was a presence that God gave me, and a faith that God gave me that was noticed by others for sure, but just kept me moving forward. And I really believe that attitude was critical, right? And then the other thing, last thing I'll say is there were some people rooting against me. There were people who weren't Christians, who knew I was a Christian. And I literally had friends tell me that there were people saying, "I bet you he's really angry. I bet you he's bitter. Let's see how he does now that he's gone through." I couldn't believe it. They were telling me that. And whoa, one, I was kind of stunned by that. And 2, said, okay, I'm going to show them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, watch me come back. Watch me now. Look at me now. Look at me now.
Yeah.
Wow.